There were not 3 million votes cast by non-citizens in the 2016 election. I repeat that just in case it isn't clear. There were not 3 million votes cast by non-citizens in the 2016 election. Now, I'm not going to go so far as to deny all claims of any voting fraud. Voting fraud has happened at small scale in several cases, often by mistake. But the claims of 3 million illegal votes has no basis in reality. The most likely source of these claims is a study from December of 2014 called Do Non-Citizens Vote in U.S. Elections? This study was published by Jesse Richmond and David Ernest, two associate professors of political science and international studies at Old Dominion University. The study is widely debunked, but we'll run through the basics anyway. The source of the data is 2008 and 2010 CCES data. CCES is a project run by Harvard University that's based on a 50,000-person national stratified sample survey administered by YouGov/Polymetrics. The CCES includes a question on citizenship and, regardless of the answer, asks other questions about voting status, which the study claims most others do not do. They attempted to confirm in the study that the non-citizen answers were legitimate by comparing two demographics of overall non-citizens to confirm that the people who responded accurately or in line with other non-citizens. And then they used the small sample of people who did claim to be non-citizens who responded to then extrapolate from those to all of non-citizens. In the 2008 data, they also put forward effort to match against commercially available databases to back up the claims made by non-citizens on whether they voted for both registration and votes. From a quick read, nothing would be completely off with this. Surveys of this kind collect large numbers of responses to minimize error. Since non-citizens are estimated to be a significant portion of the U.S. population, around 19 million total non-citizens, which is not just illegal immigrants, but all non-citizens, or about 3 to 4% of the population, one could expect you would get enough data to act meaningfully on this. However, there is a major flaw with the approach to using the CCES data to analyze non-citizens. The samples are intentionally constructed to be representative of citizens. According to the Washington Post, the 2008 and 2010 CCES surveyed large opt-in internet samples constructed by the polling firm YouGov to be nationally representative of the adult citizen population. In other words, the non-citizens who responded were not intended to be representative. It was a non-goal of the dataset. Additionally, a later panel is a repeated survey of the same group of people conducted by CCES, who were re-interviewed twice, once in 2010 and once in 2012, showed that 20% of the people identifying as non-citizens in 2012 identified as citizens in 2010. And that 20% was an overwhelming majority of the people who said they voted in 2012. So 71% of the respondents who said that they were non-citizens who voted in 2012 had previously identified as citizens. In other words, they most likely just checked the wrong box. Now, even with this in mind, you might be, as I was, curious about how these numbers turn into 3 million people. That is, how many people who said they were non-citizens in the 2008 CCES reported that they had voted. In 2008, 339 participants in the CCES reported as being non-citizens. 38 participants in the study identified as non-citizens and also self-reported as voting. However, studies have repeatedly shown that people will lie when asked if they voted in surveys and panels, so the study authors also looked further and tried to verify those votes and found 5 verified cases in the 2008 CCES data where they found a voter who had claimed to be a non-citizen and to vote. 5. Out of 50,000 people surveyed, of 339 who identified as non-citizens, only 5 were verified to have voted. No verification was made of anyone's citizenship status other than overall demographics, so this is only a verification that people who identified themselves as non-citizens voted. Simple math says that if every verified vote among this 50,000 person sample was actually from a non-citizen, and the study was in fact representative on the whole of the population of the United States, this would result in approximately 33,000 votes from non-citizens, because this would be 0.01% of the survey population, and the total population of the US is around 330 million people. This is likely an exaggeration, since 70% of the people who claimed to be citizens and voted were probably just filling out the form wrong, but even so comes nowhere near the claim of 3 million. Even if all those votes were in a single place, all 33,000 of them, they would have a hard time changing the results of the presidential election. Now, if you're like me, you're saying, wait, how does that turn into 3 million? So here's how. If you take the 339 responses from non-citizens and you assume they are all representative of all non-citizens, and then you give the maximum credit to both people who claim to have voted and people who actually voted, that is using a total number of 43, the 5 who were verified and the 38 additional who self-reported, you get a number of 12.6%. And if you apply the survey margin of error to this population, extending the upper bound of the number to 14.7%, and then apply this to all non-citizens, 19.4 million adult non-citizens in 2011, you get 2.85 million people. This is how you take a survey where 43 people said they voted and use it to claim that there was voter fraud on the scale of 2.85 million people. Every aspect of this survey is ignoring the fundamental flaws of using the CCS data in this way. The selection of population is not targeted at being representative of non-citizens. The reporting of citizenship is known and demonstrated to be flawed, especially for those who voted. Self-reporting of voting history is also known to have flaws in all studies. The results of this study have been thoroughly rejected again and again. They do not align with any of the other dozens of investigations of voter fraud, which all show negligible amounts of individual voter fraud at all, and very few documented cases of non-citizen voter fraud. For non-citizens who might want to vote, the cost is just too high and the benefit is just too low. So the next time that you see the 3 million number bandied about, remember that the way it came about is almost certainly that 43 people checked the wrong box for citizenship in an online poll in 2008. It has no more bearing on reality than that. Donald Trump is making claims which are drastically dangerous to our democracy. No matter which side of the political spectrum you are on, you should be scared of a chief executive who puts the entirety of the electoral system into play for political points or otherwise. Our elections are free and fair and a model for other countries in many ways. Let's not call that into question with bogus facts based on debunked studies, misusing statistics in order to win headlines.